Hello there. I'm Eternal, and I'm an object show fan that has barely watched any object shows. We have to fix that. Let's play Object Catchup. Welcome in to the series where we discuss object shows right after we watch them, whether it's new or old, famous or unknown. We will eventually get to it all, I promise. And today we are going to be doing a little bit of a special episode because we are focusing entirely on one show or one series of show, and there's a chance that this will be the biggest episode yet because we are taking a look at ASTOSIMBIB. ASTOSIMBIB is CraftedPin series featuring Pi, if I'm not mistaken, as the host. I have heard of this before because the one animation went viral in a negative way about the Pi toy. It really was not bad. It was actually pretty good. I kind of enjoyed it, but a lot of people, for some reason, were quite against it. So I have heard of it. However, ASTOSIMBIB has just had episode 5. However, before we can get to ASTOSIMBIB, we have to watch ANOSIMBIB. So we will have to talk about all of that in today's episode, but by the end of it, we will have reviewed the last one. So, we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. We will have the timestamps down there in the description, as we always do, but have the timestamps there. You can skip to whatever episode you find interesting to discuss if you only want to see ASTOSIMBIB discussions, or if you want to see a specific episode, if you want to see the latest episode. Feel free to skip around, look at what you find interesting. Also, by the way, there is if I'm not mistaken, a Pi plush that was announced yesterday as well, which I saw exists. So if you're a fan of the show, which you might be if you're watching a discussion video on the show, I have left a link there in the description as well to that page so that you can check it out if you have the money for it. Now, I have not watched this as previously stated, but we are going to be starting off with ANOSIMBIB, which we're going to be watching in the episodes singularly. The most popular is the compilation of ANOSIMBIB episodes. However, we're not going to be doing that. We are going to be watching the original episodes as they released with their proper numbers. So that would mean that we need to start with ANOSIMBIB 1. Whatever, fatty. Let's see. I'll come back and give my discussion on it. Just quickly before I actually do that, shout outs to Mikey for creating Obvious Show Roundup, which this series takes inspiration from. I nearly forgot to say that this time. Unfortunate, but I have remembered just in the nick of time to give credit where it is due. Alright, now, ANOSIMBIB 1. Well, I have just finished watching ANOSIMBIB 1, and wow, isn't that a lovely 3 minutes? That is incredibly well paced. I can't even lie. Like, it's paced extremely quick, right? Because we're trying to do fast show here. However, it's fast enough to where I still know what's going on. Like, it doesn't actually play itself that messy, you know? Like, I could follow everything that was happening. It made sense. It just happened quickly. That was a very nice experience. I see why this show currently got, the reception that it did. And I mean, if this is ANOSIMBIB 1, presumably it is gonna get better. Now, what is the cast that we have here? Um, I'll try to keep the ANOSIMBIB discussions relatively short because it's not the main focus of today, right? ASTOSIMBIB is the focus of today. It's a longer show, the newer show. But we're still going to discuss here. So, a challenge of finding a piece of me. Characters that immediately stuck out to me, some of them are quite funny gags. I really like the way Super Glue sings. I really like the Mini Pencil and Mini Match are quite an interesting duo character. SpongeBob aside pants doesn't really do that much. The host, very very interesting relation that the host has with the contestants. It sort of doesn't really dictate power all that much. It seems to sort of more just let the contestants do what they want. But does still make an interesting challenge, like finding a piece of me. The paint bucket is the sort of loner, well, not loner, but sort of negative character. So I see. Ham is the character that can't really do much. Still ends up being safe by, I guess, luck. Um, there's Mr. Homestar Runner, which is sort of just the dumb character. It's a bit of a goofy JPEG because you can tell that it's sort of green screened. There, who else is there? There's Mr. Lego, which I always like the and it's like the reverse of the other of the paint bucket, sort of more positive. Then there's like Right Arrow and the girl like Popsicle. Who was this? But yeah, it's overall just kind of a fun time. Like there's some good gags here and there, and it was an enjoyable 3 minutes. Also, fun fact, this will be the first time I say this here. I speak Portuguese, so I can actually just understand Brazil flag. I don't need the subtitle here, which I think is fun as well. I mean, it's a completely accidental thing. If it was any other language, I'd be cooked, but I happen to know. So, yeah, Brazil fly. It's pretty good pronunciation. I don't know if it's at least if it's not by a native speaker, then I definitely think that it's very much so matched quite well. Like I did it. I could understand it fully if it's not by a native speaker, but I don't know, to be honest. I don't have the knowledge, so I'm gonna guess it's by a native speaker until I hear otherwise, because I just think that is nicer. And yeah, with that very fun little episode, here there's a lot of movement. A few characters don't get to do much. I'm predicting, I don't know, Polygon might get eliminated because it's the character that did the least in the episode overall. I think had the least like to say. So that's my guess, but I guess we'll find out in ANOSIMBIB 2. Let's uh let's hit it immediately. Let's go quick transition. All right, I have just watched ANOSIMBIB 2, and yeah, I mean, it's more of ANOSIMBIB for sure. It's relatively fast paced, and the challenge, there's not, the cast isn't that big, so you can somewhat give screen time with this pacing to mostly everyone. You can't give too much screen time to people, but you can give like a decent amount. So in the elimination, the Mr. Lego Blazoned or whatever they're called gets eliminated. I think that's fair, especially if you consider that they're one of the few characters without a proper asset. But yeah, they get eliminated. I was pretty close to the prediction, guys. I like how they get eliminated. I think it's a good gag. And then the challenge is to jump. A paint bucket is miserable and only jumps 3 feet. I mean, the characters that do well is F and F Arrow, because how FNF works is, as long as you make the sound, you, I guess, have the up arrow sound. So they keep doing that for a long time. So that's pretty nice. Also jumping pretty well is apparently SpongeBob, which jumps off screen. The Ham jumps off screen. Ham, yet to, despite being theoretically one of the weakest characters, has still managed to find a way to get survived in writing. So we'll see if Ham is managing to survive an elimination when they get to it. Match and Pencil Jr., which are one character, not two characters, end up being getting a very high jump, like the highest jump, because of the slingshot thing. I mean, now flopping is this. Who is this name? It's like Treasure Tree or something. At least in the Treasure Tree. Okay. Didn't jump very high. Brazil flag didn't jump very high either. Superglue did okay, but in general, Polygon, I think, I don't know, Polygon didn't really get to do a jump. So the character didn't really get to do it, and is now up for Elam again, which, considering the whole situation with the fact that they got eliminated last time, they could get cooked in this situation. I don't know. Who would I predict? Maybe them or Homestar Runner. I don't know who the viewers wouldn't like. Again, in this episode, there really wasn't much from the paper basket. So, I'm going to go with the basket paper. That's what I'm going to go with here as far as getting a limb. But overall, it's another fun challenge. I don't think it's as good as the first one. It's a bit like a more uninteresting because you don't run around as much. But they do have some interesting methods of jumps, and it's overall a pretty nice 4 minutes. That's the good thing about the episodes. They're super short. So, yeah, let's just keep it moving. ANOSIMBIB 3. Come on, come on. Alrighty, that was ANOSIMBIB 3. I just watched. Interesting episode. By the way, one thing I didn't mention on a Simbib Tuesday, the intro exists. I don't know what the song is for the intro. I have no idea. I don't think it's an original track, but I don't know what track it is. It's pretty nice though. I enjoy it. Whatever song it is, I don't know. There's no credit, I think, to it. Whatever the actual song is, it's not written in the description. It's not written in there. But either way, it's pretty good. I enjoy it. Um, so the challenge ends up being stacking cups. Now, yeah, there isn't that much writing to do in the challenge. Eliminate its Homestar Runner. So I think Homestar Runner's elimination, alongside last episode's elimination of the Lego figure, I think really speaks to voting patterns. Actually, so I'm gonna spend a quick minute discussing this. So in option shows that are really short, right? And you don't get a lot of time to build rapport with the characters. A lot of the time, you vote based on looks. This is a lot of the time the votes that happens. You know, a lot of people vote based on personality, but when you don't have enough time to figure out personalities or characters too much, um, you'll sometimes just vote for the character you like the least, but the character you like the least, I mean, the one with the worst design. And people don't appreciate a design that wasn't designed. So, like a genuine character, you know, like Mr. Homestar Runner here, that was just a JPEG, or last episode of Lego, that was just a JPEG, right? So it makes sense why they would get eliminated, because it's just the asset, it doesn't blend in. It's not what people, I guess, were here for. So even if Homestar Runner had a very distinctive personality and all that, just it doesn't work, because they've only been around for like 2 total minutes. So in general, they still get eliminated. It's actually by a significant margin as well, 300 votes more than Pain Bucket. So, like, yeah, it is quite interesting. A few quick notes I like on the challenge. I love how the video, how it is just a video up there at the top left. Like, if you look up 10-minute timer, you'll get a video with that background, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's just a 10-minute timer video, which is quite funky. My favorite character is honestly probably Super Glue. Super Glue is just so dumb and goofy. I like Super Glue. Ham doesn't really do much in this challenge, so Ham is up for Elam, which I guess we'll see what is going to be going on. There is the team of Pain Bucket and Brazil. Pain Bucket refuses to do anything because of what's the reason? Being a lesbian? Is that the reason? I don't know, but either way, you know, pessimistic character, Blueberry II core. But eventually Brazil decides to stack Christ the Redeemer on them, but eventually they get the most of that tower gets destroyed. So then the teams that do well are the two teams that don't really speak that often, which is the FNF Arrow and Treasure Tree, which end up being safe by really not doing that much. They just kind of exist. Have like one line at the start, and then the other team, which is who's the other team? Oh, it's the Match and Pencil Junior and Sponge Side Pants, which, yeah, they don't speak until they do speak, and then apparently it falls down, because that's how it works. Even though, I mean, F and F Arrow did proceed to immediately speak after, so I'm just saying it should have applied both ways. Anyways, yeah, it's another fun episode. The challenge is a little weak, like they even notice before that, like, they even notice like half the teams don't speak and stuff, and it's like a mentioned throwaway line. So it's not like the greatest challenge, but they do a good job of a not incredible idea. Who's getting eliminated? I'm gonna say Ham. My prediction is Ham. Ham's getting eliminated in my opinion. Let's see if that's true heading into ANOSIMBIB 4. All right, ANOSIMBIB 4. I just watched it. Let's start with the elimination. Now, yeah, Super Glue gets eliminated. Makes perfect sense. Of course, Super Glue was a menace like, I enjoyed Super Glue because, like, dumbass character, but in general, like, yeah, it was a menace to the team, made the team lose. And therefore it gets eliminated. I find really interesting is Brazil Flag's very, very good performance in these two eliminations. The least voted one at both times, because, like, I think that, well, first of all, having a Brazil flag in your show is definitely going to spawn in the support, but this isn't vote to save, this is vote to eliminate, which means that, like, I find it interesting how so little people want this Brazil flag out. I think that is just a cool concept, having the character that speaks a different language, you know, as far as a character concept. So, like, as far as going far in the challenges, I definitely think that yeah, Brazil Flag is one of the coolest characters in the show itself. Um, Meanwhile, we have another intro today in this episode. I think Pi definitely stands out. Like this fella has just such an unbelievable like expressiveness to their voice sometimes and the way that they speak. You know, they manage to sound so bored when trying to be bored and when mimicking. Like there's such an expressiveness to Pi's voice, especially at the end when they're like begging people to not vote in the comments. Like it is hilarious and it is so expressive. Uncle Grandpa shows up for some reason. I don't know why, but eventually doesn't really do anything. I actually used to watch Uncle Grandpa. I don't know how many people. If I'm not mistaken, Uncle Grandpa was a very badly received show. Like people didn't like it. Apparently, I always thought it was fine. I always thought it was really cool. Went back when it originally aired. But either way, yeah, the challenge is not unbelievably interesting because some characters do it for free, and expectedly, the ones who can do it end up doing it. Like, Brazil Flag with a ladder, uh, Paint Bucket, who's just tall enough, the rest who's tall enough, like Polygon, who's able to shapeshift, the SpongeBob, who's able to make it. You know, anybody who's just capable of doing it does it, and anybody who isn't. There isn't too much of a incredible like surprise. Like, yeah, who could do it? The only one that maybe I'm surprised they didn't do it was like the paper basket character, which I still think is the least interesting character in the show so far. It's the character I care the least about. But as far as these eliminated, I'm gonna go with Ham again because it was because got bottom third last time, and in this case there aren't any of the other two people in the bottom two because one got eliminated and Painbuck is safe. So I'm gonna go with Ham again. That's my prediction on the elimination. I don't think we're gonna have too much variance, but yeah, so far, I mean, the writing, dude, I think this episode, like, the thing about this episode being weaker is that I don't necessarily, like, I think I've said every episode is weaker than the last because it does somewhat feel that way, but it's still all pretty well written, you know? Like, it's all fast paced, all pretty good. But yeah, I still think the first challenge is the best. The second one is a bit better than the third, and this one is a bit more boring than the third because they're not even in duos. So that is my prediction. Let's see. Come on. ANOSIMBIB 5, step it up. We've dropped from like a 7.8 to a 7.5. Like, it's still good. Still very good. Still very fun. All right, let's see. ANOSIMBIB 5. All right, I just watched ANOSIMBIB 5. Literally, I've just finished it. I was smiling because I love the little gag at the end with Paint Bucket doing the voting screen. I don't know. I love it when other people do hosting roles because of random mess. So we have a wrap here. To do the elimination, which is interesting. Surprisingly enough, I wasn't expecting it, but yeah, the paper basket or basket paper does actually get eliminated, which I mean, I said I wasn't a big fan of it because it didn't do much, but I didn't expect that people actually did catch on to it. But yeah, they get eliminated. Ham remains alive here for yet another day. We have the most votes ever, which is interesting to see how the show has been growing. I haven't checked the release schedule of these things, but either way, it's pretty interesting to see how Brazil Flag does speak English, which I mean it makes sense that you would, because Brazil Flag does understand comments being asked, like when like Treasure Tree was like, "Hey, I will like, how did you know how to put the light bulb?" And then it's like Brazil Flag responds, right, which means that is a knowledge that was already there. They didn't need to learn it, but oh well, it's one of those things. Basket paper was not a big understander of that. Anyways, raw paper shotgun for some reason. FNF Arrow uses an actual shotgun, which is fair. It's a good strategy. However, eventually just runs out of runs out of gamma. Runs out of bullets. SpongeBob side paths, trying to make him more interesting. So far has been the absolute goat of challenges. Just wins so unbelievably often. But yeah, there's still a good amount of gags. I'm also a fan of how of the host again. Pi is Pi is just fun, very expressive, very fun. Um, Manages to act miserable, but also like a host and all of that jazz, and roll along with things, but also make different deflections and all that stuff, and it's rather fun. Um, and yeah, other than that, the challenge continues to be mildly, like, overly simple. I think this challenge probably goes in the middle of the pack. There's more interactions than the last two, so I think it's better than the last two. But the first two, I think, of the jumping and the initial challenges, still think is the best one, are probably better. And then in the voting screen, who's getting eliminated? I don't know. There's now Polygon. There's like I promise. If Ham doesn't get out this episode, because I don't know, Ham just seems like the type of character that gets eliminated. It's just that archetype character doesn't really do much, and that's kind of the point of the character. And people don't really like him that much because there's not that much personality to it. So it's usually that type of character that will get eliminated. So that's why I keep predicting. But I promise, if ANOSIMBIB 6 Ham doesn't get eliminated, I will never predict them again. This is my last time predicting them. All right, let's head into ANOSIMBIB 6. All right, I just watched ANOSIMBIB 6, and that's a fun challenge, isn't it? So they all go to a Adobe anime because it just appears. And then for an episode, you're in Adobe anime, and you have to find a Flipperclip logo. Now, this is a challenge where there isn't that much logic necessarily placed on the challenge, because like the Flipperclip logo, you could just place it anywhere. It turns out that it's in the real world. And Ham with a very nice anime. I'm not gonna lie, like it is very well made, especially the animation scrolling on the iPad there with Ham. Amazing. It's yeah, very, very, very well done. Grabbing the iPad as well. It is very nice. So Ham ends up being safe in this challenge. Other than that, the characters are sort of skedaddling a little bit. Ham doesn't get eliminated. They're just banned from getting eliminated. I will never predict Ham again because I have predicted them 3 times and they've been like second or third to last every time, but they just don't get eliminated. So I'm always incorrect. I will never predict them again. Yeah, Polygon gets eliminated. The other character wasn't too interesting. I mean, like they had an interesting gimmick, but it never was used that often because the like I don't know, the challenges didn't really let it. Like the Lightbulb challenge was pretty nice for Polygon, but other than that, there wasn't too much that Polygon could have really done. Yeah, again, Pi, very expressive, very fun. And other than that, yeah, there's not, I guess, too much to say. I the flip booklet detector. I am starting to think. Okay, I'm really trying to figure out if this Brazil flag is native speaker, but I think the answer is no. I think it's a no, because I think originally I said yes, but I don't know. I'm starting to get a feeling that Brazil flag isn't a native speaker, because the words they're said are mildly off. Like it's very well pronounced, like you can absolutely understand it, but I don't know if it's quite right. And this could be hilariously disrespectful if it is a native speaker, but I don't know. So far, my original thought was yes. Now it's kind of no. I guess we'll have to see later what I think, but it's pretty nice. It's pretty good, anyways. Like it's good. You can understand it. It does its job very well. Um, Pain Bucket continues doing the whole misery thing, but then vote to eliminate. Who's my prediction? A lot of people didn't like Pain Bucket, but I feel like in this episode, I'm gonna go Treasure Tree. Is there any reason? No, I'm just going Treasure Tree for some reason. I just the vibe of it gives me Treasure Tree, but I haven't gotten like any ANOSIMBIB voting right. I do not understand these viewer voting patterns. All right, next up, ANOSIMBIB 7. Let's go. All right, I've just finished ANOSIMBIB 7, and the voters don't have control anymore. Oh no. Well, let's start with the elimination because I do want to discuss this a little bit. I find Pain Bucket's voting also very interesting. Because you could tell in the other episode, like I don't know why I didn't predict this. I don't know why I thought there was going to be a change of heart. I don't know what I was doing like 10 minutes ago, but Yeah, Pain Bucket has always had nearly the most votes. Didn't end up having the most votes like this time, but nearly always I think was second to Super Glue, and I think was second to somebody else in like episode 2. So yeah, Pain Bucket doesn't really do well, which personally I don't really understand that much because like, well, okay, here I do. I do understand. People don't like characters that do nothing. People don't like characters that do nothing that often and would like to eliminate them. Me personally, I'm a little bit of a disagreeer in doing that to characters where like being the arc is their whole thing, you know? Because I think that's cool, in my opinion. Like, I like Blueberry from II. I know a lot of people don't, but I personally am an enjoyer of Blueberry as a concept for a character, and I think it's pretty good to have. But, like, in this case, yeah, Pain Bucket didn't really do much. They gave Pain Bucket the whole like being a lesbian thing, but then didn't really do anything with that because like there's no time for that you know, to actually be a trait. So you just end up having a ribbon, and that's about it. But yeah, eventually ends up getting eliminated. So I don't know what else is happening. Brazil flag ends up destroying a house because of what? The intro was quite confusing. So treasure tree, oh, gets planted into the ground, grows into the tree, which then blasts paint bucket and dies, and also blasts paint. No, and then gets shot down by Brazil flag to put on the house, but then FNF arrow destroys the house with a bulldozer because of having chopped out the tree. Okay, God. Um, Eventually, the challenges have fun, which I mean, it's an interesting challenge to be honest. Because yeah, it ends up the ham doesn't really do much shit and ends up losing because of what a fart. So that's fair. Match and Pencil Jr. end up winning, and they will get to choose who is eliminated. What we vote if bro is handsome. I wonder if the answer is gonna be yes or no. Okay. I'm gonna predict the answer is yes, but me personally, I'd vote no because it's that type of thing where it's like it's such an obviously funny gag, like written for you if it's no, right? So like you gotta vote no. Come on. Um. So I hope the viewers did that, but I have not been a good predictor. So even if this is a 50-50, I'm gonna go no. You know, I'm gonna say no. Viewers, vote no. Please tell me you voted no 2 years ago. I find it interesting how Brazil flag just gets immediately like eliminated. The At this point from the challenges, like immediately, Brazil flag hasn't been safe in quite a while. I mean, in this game we don't have viewer voting, but like it is a whole thing where I don't think they need the currently Brazil flag to be safe in any episode. Like it is ends up being somewhat of a wasted immunity spot because Brazil flag has been so unbelievably good at the votings. Like third or fourth time that Brazil flag is the least voted, and it's like yeah. Also, I'm pretty confident that Brazil flag is not a native speaker now, but I got fooled for a while. All right, A to A. Let's go with it. All right, I have just watched ANOSIMBIB 8A. I mean, this is almost definitively the episode I will have the least to say about because, like, you know, there isn't a challenge in this episode. Because the episode is an FNF mod. I'm presuming this is an announcement for the FNF mod itself. Although, now that I think about it, it's not actually a link here. Like, it says that it'll release 10.6.3. This is on the 5th. So it was releasing like the next day over from the episode's release, which makes sense. Then we'll have the elimination where Matt Jr. and Pencil Jr. decide to pick Ham out. I think this makes sense because it would have been, right? It would have made sense if they used this as a opportunity to eliminate a fan favorite, but I think people would have disliked it too much, you know? Like if somehow Match and Pencil Jr. eliminated Brazil flag, right? Then that would be a way to get them out. But it would have felt a bit too rigged. It would have been like, oh, I don't want to write this character, you go. But in general, they made the decision that Match and Pencil Jr. would make, which would be to eliminate Ham. Because yeah, if that does remind of Spongy, which makes sense. It is that type of the character archetype. Um, And also is the character that had the least support, I think, out of the final six. Always got near the bottom. I predicted them to get out like a million times, so you could tell that they didn't have my support at the very least. Also, just as a quick note, I absolutely adore the design of the doctor file that shows up for like 1 second. I looks absolutely incredible little asset. They should have done a bit more with the handsome thing. They should have made him a bit sadder. Pie. It would have been funnier if they did something with that voting, but they didn't. And well, it's just time to head into the FNF mod, I guess. Overall, I mean, it's a cool little transition episode. Let's see if the FNF mod is any good. I'm not gonna play it. I'm gonna watch the 8B instead. By the way, I do find it nice how the 8B is like now commonly associated with a game because of BFDIA. So yeah. Hello, I have just come back from watching ANOSIMBIB A to B, the FNF mod, which is certainly interesting. So what happens is boyfriend drops in, and then everybody gets their own turn at a song. And I'll be honest, before any specific songs to discuss, I must say every song has sort of its general relaxed vibe to it. Not that many are very high energy, other than like the last two. Funk Out and Unemotional, they have the most energy to them, but at least like those first three or four, they almost feel like the lo-fi versions of themselves, to be honest. Like there's not that much going on in the background for like Match and Pencil song. I don't like genuinely, I don't know what beat there was for like the second half of the song. It was just like one note, and then they were just, of course, they were singing. Well, let's start from the beginning. So we're starting with Calculator, Pi song. Now, that song was okay. I don't. Oh, look. Okay, here's the deal. I'm not gonna judge too much because as far as FNF goes, that is pretty far out of my league. But not gonna judge the difficulty. I'm not gonna judge songs too harshly. I will say that the animations for Pi are great. I love how the down is upside down and the up is like stretched legs. Um, it's quite cool, but it's relatively basic. It also just looks like the easiest. It flows kind of slower, so that one's fine. Then there's side pans. Now I'm gonna like in terms of like the vocal, dude. What do they call it? There's not a synth. The vocal sample, I think, is what they call it. That they use for the notes. I think SpongeBob Side Pants was definite, well, not definite, but it was, I think, the best one in my opinion because it just harmonizes so well, in those long notes that it just sounds really nice. Like it's still relatively slower song, but it sounds really nice. Also, I really like the losing profile from the forum because like just laid down like a blob of cheese. I think for everybody it is like amazing, those little drawings at the bottom. But yeah, I think Saipants might be my favorite song in there. I'm not gonna lie because it's not one that was supposed to stand a chance. I think the like you're supposed to prefer funk you out like significantly because it's just it's meant to be the main one, it's meant to be the elite one, it's meant to be the one that should win. But either way, then there's Childish, which is the match Pencil Jr. I don't think the vocal sample for this one is great. I don't, especially pencils, but the drawings for the two are adorable as well. The little poses that they make, a pencil holding the microphone for match especially, it's just it is absolutely fire. But as the song, I think it stands out less. I think again, I haven't played it, so I have no idea. But from a difficulty standpoint, it did look like this. It did feel like it was pretty hard. But I might be completely wrong. And then there's Carnaval, which is Brazil flag song. I think it's a little bit of missed potential. They could have made it a bit more Brazil. In general, it had a bit more of a funky vibe, but like, it like not funky, but like, it had a bit more of a high energy vibe, but really not by a lot. They could have done a bit more with the Brazil flag song, I think, to be honest. Because Brazilian music, is this whole cultural thing, and it's like it should have like there was an opportunity. I know we're talking FNF here, but the background, come on, give us a backing beat that has a bit more oomph to it. But like, yeah, with Brazil flag, it's pretty low effort. Then there's Treasure Trees, Unemotional, which is not the longest, right? I think it's just about not the longest song because Funk Out's definitely longer. But I don't know why I wasn't too into this one. It had yet again it picked up the energy from the other beats, but by a relatively low standpoint. Like it still ends up relatively relaxed. So then, considering it's the second longest song, it didn't exactly hold my attention too well. So I'm sorry, Treasure Tree. I was not too into this one, and in fact, I barely remember it. Like it sounded like something, but I not 100% remember. The animations between them, well, they're just kind of ANOSIMBIB animations. They're pretty short. They do the classic, like, sort of sarcasm thing, like, oh, why do we all get a scene? It's like, why would you get a scene? And that makes sense, right? And Brazil Flights gets completely ignored in this episode, to be honest. Like, they don't pretty much don't speak other than one line at the end, which Pi just ignores. And then there's Funk Out, which is, well, I mean, definitively just the better song here. Like, in terms of, like, objectively speaking, it is the one with the most, and it's the one with those oomph to it. It's nice. It's got elements to it, progression, a much more clearly laid out progression. There's a proper battle going on, which is the point of the challenge, if an FNF is trying to win and all of that stuff. But in general here, I don't know what to say with this one, but it is quite nice. Like, yeah, the way the long notes, and then the fact that you start out with the left and right, which by the way are very well tuned, and then at the end with the whole tired one, it's nice. I'll be interested to see if in ANOSIMBIB 9 in the future, like if the fact that FNF Arrow tired themselves out is gonna play a matter in the future. Like, are we gonna be having something change that much between the episodes? Are we gonna have like a FNF Arrow unable to do the next challenge or something because they're just really tired? I would hope that's the case because a bit of like continuity from episode to episode. It is cool. Like there was the one with Ham, which was quite nice. But in general, turns out the FNF era is also just about not capable of defeating a boyfriend from Friday Night Funkin'. So Pi ends up just getting rid of them with a quick snap, and everybody else is up for voting. I would have personally voted Side Pants because it's not one with a big chance of winning, but also I really enjoyed it. But in terms of getting eliminated, it might be that one. I don't know, or it could be the match in the Pencil Junior. It could be that one. I don't know. I wasn't, I guess, a big fan of that one. It was. I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna be completely honest. Heading into this next challenge, but damn, this one's really hard. Maybe I think the winning would definitely be Fun Cup, but we only have to talk about which one gets the least vote. Well, some people are still gonna vote for the song, even if they're gonna save the character, right? Because it's pretty much the same thing. It's like a vote to save, but with songs. So my prediction is gonna be match the Pencil Junior, but I don't know. I guess we'll have to see within the next one, to be honest, because other than that, I just don't know. Yeah, I really didn't have. I guess I didn't have too much to discuss. I mean, like in terms of difficulty, like my FNF skill, I could have maybe, I think, survived the first few songs. I would have probably struggled on Childish, but then getting into unemotional. Well, unemotional, I might have still been able to do unemotional, but especially Funk Out, I think it would have been very difficult for me because I am quite a bad rhythm game player for some reason. A lot of people are good at FNF, just naturally. I'm just completely not. I don't know, like my rhythm is really bad. I can't look at all the arrows on screen and just manage to click them all correctly. So Funker would have absolutely destroyed me. Even though, of course, I know it's a game a lot about patterns and stuff. If you know the patterns, you recognize the patterns, to do like the what is it called, like a stairwell. Where you go left to right, tapping the keys, and then it's fast, but it's not necessarily feel fast. But like in general, I think Funkout also had definitely. I think it had a reference to another FNF song because there was one like section that definitely gave me that vibe because it was like That like that's from an FNF song. I don't know which one, but if it's not, it's extremely similar to one. But it's definitely it's giving me major deja vu. It I don't know. I think that's from a song, but I guess we'll have to see. Maybe I recognize it is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I mean, I think that's all for ANOSIMBIB 8B, so I already talked more than I think for the regular episodes. So let's just move on to ANOSIMBIB 9 and see what eventually happened. Here we go. Okay, hello, I am back from having watched ANOSIMBIB 9, Leave Me Alone. I haven't given spoiler warnings for any of these, I don't know if I was going to give them now. ANOSIMBIB's pretty old. So, I did okay. So let's talk about KKC. So Saipans gets eliminated. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Like when I said that I would have voted it, it's entirely because of a very weird reason. You know, like I like the harmony that the song has. Which, like, what? I mean, especially when you consider that the bottom two is with Treasure Tree, which was, I think, supposed to be like a relatively safe um character, you know, because unemotional, it was a pretty big song as far as like the F and F mod was concerned. You know, it was one of the bigger ones in terms of length, one of the more complexity going on to it. So the fact that it did as bad as it did, I'm relatively surprised. Like it did worse than Childish, but I guess Childish it was cuter. So yeah, I guess Side Punch gets screwed when you consider the cuteness of the assets, especially for Match and Pencil Junior. Now, Brazil flag also qualifies very safely, because like it had, first of all, Brazil flag's a fan favorite, and secondly, the song was pretty funny because of the joke "You're going to Brazil" and all of that stuff. So that makes sense why that would happen. Now the challenge is to find a leaf because for some reason the host is very unmotivated right now, which is, I don't know if that's like the thing about pie. The thing about pie is I can never tell if it's an accurate representation of how the creator is feeling about that episode because they feel like such a personal character. You know, they speak in such an honest way about things when it's like, so when they're like, I don't want to make this episode, it's like, do you want to make this episode? And you're saying that Pi doesn't. Is that like, did you write that? Or do you just not want to make the episode like for real? That's the only thing that I maybe don't get. Yeah, which maybe like I don't know, because Pi it just seems like such a real host. You know, it just seems like such a real host. F and F Arrow finds a Tanuki leaf, and the Pi ends up having a raccoon or raccoon. Is that how you say it? Raccoon Tanuki. Wait, but whatever, Tanuki leaf. So eventually just died. So Match and Pencil Junior, they end up finding a leaf which is green for some reason because they end up going to a tree. Oh no, wait. Oh, wait, did they slice up a part of Brazil flag? That what they did? Yeah, because the trees are white. Uh, oh yeah, they chopped off a part of the Brazil flag. I didn't even notice that gag until right now. But eventually, yeah, Brazil flag finds it, and it's safe. Brazil flag hasn't been safe for a while, but it's safe this time. I mean, I think it's fair for Brazil flag to be safe eventually, even though they don't have to be because they usually don't get voted to eliminated anyways. But either way, who's getting eliminated? I have no idea at this point because FNF Arrow and Treasure Tree, they're sort of those characters. I'm gonna say Treasure Tree, but I kind of don't know right now. I just see the other reason why I'm saying it's weird is because this episode is entirely about like Pi being unmotivated to make it, and then at the end of it, it's like with the post credit scene, it's so honest. It's like, yo, give me the motivation to keep going. So like, I don't think Pi is a representation of how the creators actually motivated to make the episode. However, it's sometimes definitely gives off that impression because it's just such an honest host type character that it sometimes gives off that vibe. And yeah, okay, I think that's all I had to say for ANOSIMBIB 9. We're getting to the end, boys. We're getting to the longer final episodes of ANOSIMBIB. Let's go to ANOSIMBIB 10, Plumpkin Patched. Hello and welcome back. I've just finished watching ANOSIMBIB 10, Plumpkin Patch. Now, Everybody's favorite duo has in fact remained in the show, Treasure Tree and F Arrow. This duo just works. I mean, they've pretty much been the one duo that has always been together. You know, in terms like a duo of different characters there, because it is Matthew Spencer Jr. But in general, they've sort of just been, you know, they're one character. You know, like this duo of Treasure Tree and friggin' F Arrow, like they've been together for every channel. They do the thing, and like at this point, it's been enough to where you can understand dynamics and both of them to want to stay in and stuff. So in general, they end up doing pretty good when it comes to the eliminations, even if. F Arrow is currently the bigger favorite, especially because of 8B. Treasure Tree isn't in like that much, but yeah, I think a bit more than Matthew Spencer Jr. So Brazil flag, which is pretty clearly the fan favorite, needs a challenge to get eliminated, and this is exactly that, the one challenge that doesn't require um, viewer voting, where you just carve out a pumpkin. Now, do these ratings make sense? Yeah, sure. I mean, Pi gives Pi a Pi rating. I don't even know what Brazil flag drew. I'm gonna be honest. And then yeah, F arrow collectively manages to draw the pumpkin get stabbed, which is pretty creative. You know, it looks pretty solid. So I honestly agree with Pi's reasoning for those ratings, to be honest. So, like, yeah. Then we head into what I like to call the rejoin. Now, who's going to rejoin? I have gotten 0 predictions right, so I will try to make this one count. Now, the character who wants to, like, who realistically would rejoin would be SpongeBob SidePants because they got eliminated at the song, right? Um, However, I don't think that's gonna happen because, as you can tell, they're really trying to not make it happen because they literally beg not to. So there's a few options in my mind. It could Match and Pencil Jr. could be there, maybe, but it's pretty close. I It could also potentially be the first fella, Lego Blaziken or whatever, because like usually in these rejoin contests, a lot of people do want to bring the first boot back. So that is going to be my second prediction, but my top one prediction is Pain Bucket. I think Pain Bucket is coming in. Pain Bucket is a character with a clearly defined personality, and just vibe, and I think they probably would rejoin, in my personal opinion, because they're a character that doesn't, I think, do well in Vote to Eliminate because a lot of people want them out. But I do think a lot of people want them in. You know, I think they're the type of character that I think also survives Vote to Saves. So I'm gonna go with Pain Bucket. If I'm wrong, I need to retire. I need to retire. I do not understand ANOSIMBIB voting patterns. I'm gonna be for real. But I'm gonna go with Paint Bucket. Okay, let's hope that I am somehow correct with this one, because at this point it's getting kind of sad. I think I predicted 0 of these predictions correctly. But yeah, Brazil flag also returns to Brazil, gets kicked back there into a random house, which yeah, that's fun, isn't it? That's fun. At least Brazil flag isn't gonna win. You know, if there was a vote to win, then Brazil flag would just win. And yeah, next up, ANOSIMBIB 11, hats off to Halloween. We're getting there. Let's go. All right, I've just finished watching ANOSIMBIB 11. Hats off to Halloween. So I think beer voting is officially wrapped up for these final 2 episodes. So the rejoin voting, well, my main choice of Pain Bucket didn't get in. However, I was the secondary prediction got in, which was Lego Flame, because I think that there's an inherent silliness to votes where the character who did the least amount of effort gets in, because like in a lot of shows I have seen this. I don't like where the rejoin is always usually one of the first characters, because It's just like we've seen enough of the characters who made it far and they got rightfully eliminated after doing their best. But the character that gets eliminated first is usually the one with the least effort. So, you know what? Sure. And also the audience changes a little bit. If I'm not mistaken, ANOSIMBIB 2 had like 1,000 votes, while here we have 5,000. So the audience changes a little bit. We might not have as much discrimination. Yeah, Lego Flame makes it to the finale with Treasure Tree because FNF Arrow ends up getting eliminated by their own volition as they both find a hat as a hat gets delivered to FNF Arrow. Treasure Tree wants it. FNF Arrow defeats Treasure Tree in a battle, but then hold up, sob story, and FNF Arrow chooses to send Treasure Tree over. Personally, am a fan of this from a writing standpoint because I think that Treasure Tree and Lego Flame as a final two is a lot more neutral of a final two than FNF Era, which seemed to be out of the duo, that the duo that was formed between FNF Arrow and Treasure Tree. I think that FNF Arrow was always kind of the more fan favorite. It was a more interesting character. So in general, I think having this final two of sort of two characters who weren't necessarily the top dogs, I think ends up as a more interesting finale than the current situation where if FNF Era would have won, like I think we realistically we would have been big into it. I still think people would be big fans of Treasure Tree, but Treasure Tree, who just barely survived in a lot of eliminations, I think was a much more like barely made it pick. The finale, I don't know what's happening in the finale. I mean, realistically, if this is Anna's, like, oh, okay, I'll be honest. ANOSIMBIB, in the way that it's been going, the final challenge probably just to be like jump, and then the winner wins. But I think it's gonna try to be a more serious finale. Um, We'll try to see who's going to win ANOSIMBIB. My prediction is going to be Treasure Tree out of the two, unless, of course, there's a big twist and somebody else comes in, Brazil flag comeback or whatever. But I'm going to predict Treasure Tree because it's, the character that didn't get eliminated. And, like, in the end, while people find it funny, if the character that got eliminated first ends up winning the show, I think from a writing standpoint, it's a little bit weird to do that. We'll see the finale. It is the longest episode that isn't the FNF mod. So it's no longer like real episodes. So I guess we'll find out the finale of ANOSIMBIB. Let's hit it. I am excited. Let's go. Alright, I have just finished watching ANOSIMBIB 12 Fury and the Flames, which is the finale of ANOSIMBIB. Now, let's discuss this a little bit. So, it turns out that the final contest is four previous contests, two each that they pick. That is what's the contest is between the Lego Flame and Treasure Tree. Now, the thing about it that's always weird is it can tie. Like, fun fact, 4 can tie, 2 and 2. So I don't know why there wasn't a third one. There wasn't a fifth one because I think it gave more suspense, right? Because if you write in 4 challenges, it's like unless they tie and then it was like I guess that was an option, but realistically, like when I saw that Treasure Tree was 2-1 up, it was like, I don't think they're going to write some awkward tiebreaker for a finale. So I think it's going to just be like it's going to be 3-1 and you're going to win. So there should have been a fifth pick, in my opinion. Like, Pi should have picked one. And then even if we don't get to it, would have been there in writing as something that would have happened. In my eyes, it would have given more of a stance, like, oh, are we gonna go to the final game? And then we don't. Right, but like, I think it would have been a bit more interesting. But either way, so the first challenge is the one for finding an arm. Treasure Tree, very smart with this, complains about Pi. It's like pretty much bullies Pi until Pi eventually punches them to the ground, and then technically does find the arm, which is very nice. Then the cup stacking challenge, a pretty smart move again from Treasure Tree to sort of blind out Pi for a little bit and topple over the stack because for some reason object permanence is not something that hosts know. So even though, like, Pi was definitely looking at the stacks 3 seconds ago, now it's fallen over. So, so that's pretty smart. And then we get into the other one, which was the third one, which was, what the hell was it? I don't remember. That is an incredibly good question. Oh yeah, it was the Have a Good Time. Treasure Tree wins with Bluetooth headphones. Yet again, pretty smart move. The characters, they act smart. Okay, getting Bluetooth headphones and then wiring them in as if it matters. It's pretty big brain. Like there's a lot of outplays going on in this finale, which I enjoy. And then the finale, which ends up being the final challenge, is to get a hat. So the get a hat challenge is so eventually, okay, what happened? Oh yeah, Lego Flame ends up tricking Treasure Tree by getting a fake hat, and then they fall into a hole, and they won't ever get in. So that's what happens, and then Lego Flame finds a hat in the audience, which is gonna bring them over. Gets stuck in the glue, which the glue that was placed by Superglue by FNF Era. FNF Era, which then uses basket paper to write that Lego Flame hates trans people for some reason, because, like, I'm not saying, like, that would be a strategy, but you didn't know that Treasure Tree was trans up until this moment. So why did you write that? Like, if you knew and then you wrote it as a tactic, sure, but you didn't. It wasn't a tactic. So why did you write it? I don't know, but I guess lucky thing. And then with the power, uh, ends up with the power of rage, ends up bouncing back onto the mainland, and then eventually, however, becomes a tree. Gets planted into the ground, which means that they eventually become their own tree fella, which, however, can't move. Then a paint bucket gets splashed around at Lego Flame, and for some reason, if you anything dark and you get laser beamed, which yeah, even the show itself points out is kind of weird. Like, what, you hate black? There's some weird subcontexts going on right now, but either way, yeah, eventually happens. Lego Flame gets absolutely demolished, and with the power of getting chopped up and dying, gets the hat over, and Treasure Tree wins. This is what needs to happen. A lot of the time, viewers with super late rejoins aren't a good idea for this reason, because you end up having a finale contestant that absolutely should not be there, right? Because a lot of the time when we're this close to finale, a lot of people pick the first out because they want to see them again because it's the one that's been the longest. So yeah, rejoins have to be more in the middle of the game. But either way, the prize ends up being a computer that's locked, which is cool. It's a great prize. Everybody loves that prize. And eventually FNF Era gives a trans pin that they found while chilling. Ham eventually gets eaten. Everybody's like dead. Yeah, because Super Glue's dead. Paint Bucket is dead. Pi is sleeping. And all that jazz. We get to see everybody's inspirations, which is pretty swag. Especially considering, ANOSIMBIB originally, starting as this type of small show, but then sort of ballooning into this bigger thing now that CraftedPin is doing, especially with ASTOSIMBIB, which we're going to be watching next. I know we're quite late into the video already. We're nearly at the hour mark. However, we have to get to the latest episode of ASTOSIMBIB. Okay, this is today's special. It's going to be a longer video than usual because we're going to be discussing this. But either way, I guess it's, I think that's most of what I think of the finale. It was, Treasure Tree definitely had to win, because it ends up, just ends up awkward, it doesn't feel deserved if the character that showed up for 3 episodes is the one that wins, it's like, it's not great. But now, let's do a quick general review of show. It's cool. It was good. It was very enjoyable. Pi is amazing. As a host, Pi is very likable because like they don't care, but they're very human in the way that they don't care about a lot of stuff. But they still do like the host persona, but they do a host persona and they don't care sometimes. And they'll force things a little bit, but they'll also just let things happen in the way that they happen. So it ends up being a very likable host, and I can see why a lot of people liked Pi. My favorite character probably dude, out of the Final Fellas, I wasn't like a gigantic fan of any of the Final Fellas, to be honest. Like the Treasure Tree FNF era, they were like fine, while the rest of them were like okay. I liked Pain Bucket, to be honest. I was a fan of Pain Bucket, but other than that, I guess it wasn't too many. I think I like Match and Pencil Junior, even though of course they're just copies of character. But out of the finale, I think Treasure Tree is definitely better. So that is my general opinion. Now, it's going to be time to head to our system bit. So, in this very, very long video, we're going to be taking a look at the 5 episodes of ASTOSIMBIB to be released. These episodes, they're all longer, they're all more complex, but we're getting to ZA, and we're probably going to be doing a bit of a deeper dive into them all because we're it's a newer show. It's the show that matters most. Even though it was been 8 months between 4 and 5, we are going to be discussing ASTOSIMBIB within its entirely. Starting off with ASTOSIMBIB 1. Oh yeah. All right, I have just finished watching ASTOSIMBIB 1. Oh yeah. Now, as you can tell, there's just in general more kind of things going on. This challenge was also just one that allows for more of it because it's a kind of sort of individual challenge. Everybody's got their own little part, and eventually you're going to show everyone. I mean, there's going to need to be a lot of total scenes. So, let's talk the cast, the returnees. They end up being Brazil flag, obviously, right? One of the fan. I mean, I think the fan favorite of ANOSIMBIB in terms of the voting. Homestar Runner as one of the OG characters, that makes sense. Lego Flame and FNF. No, Lego Flame, which made the finale but didn't win. FNF Arrow, which as a replacement for the winner, which you're not gonna have the winner on twice. Sure, you can do that. Paint Bucket is just sort of an I don't care character. And then Polygon as I guess just the other pick. I don't know. I guess I don't necessarily have anything directly against a Polygon, but I don't have anything going for them either. And then the newbies. Okay, let's discuss these newbies for a moment. So we have got Cavity. Cavity is very interesting. In the challenge, Cavity melts the wall. Now I thought it was moss. I'm not gonna lie. I thought that the green thing was gonna be moss because it's like old, Cavity, whatever. But it might be some sort of acidic like thing that got stuck on some teeth because moss doesn't literally melt wall, so it might be some bad smelling acid. And also moss doesn't even smell bad, I think. Does it? I don't smell moss very often. So Cavity is fine. I like the personality, sort of shyer. So the shy characters, there aren't really that many in the show, so I like the inclusion of Cavity. On the completely other side, we have Copper, which is a police officer. Now, very chaos type of character, very loud, sort of the opposite of Cavity. Loud in a different way than Detonator. We'll talk about Copper ends up doing this challenge by sort of like trying to find the criminal because you're a police officer. Now, I personally think that there's some potential with Copper because we do know that apparently Pi is a criminal, according to a throwaway line. I think it could be some pretty good time to bring that back in, in one of these episodes. So I hope they eventually do that with Copper, because it'd be pretty interesting. Detonator is, of course, explosive personality. This is the most character of all time. When you look at him, it's like, what personality would you have? Yeah, you go boom. Does the challenge too early, so eventually gets disqualified from it, which is unfortunate considering it's the type of challenge that Detonator would be good for. And as a newbie, getting disqualified within 3 seconds, it's not a good look for you. like it's not a good look because in these vote to eliminate you're gonna want to recognize the character and all that jazz. So it's kind of Then we have got Gary the Snail. Gary the Snail is has some weird name. What do you think of this character? Not a big fan. Not a big fan of the inclusion, to be honest. We already got sponsored side pans. Do we need another one? I don't know. They didn't write anything with Gary in the challenge as well. We're just climbing the wall at the speed of, well, a snail. So far, I'm not too big a fan of this character. To be honest, as an inclusion, I would have, enjoyed something a bit more unique. Then I got name tag, also known as Paul, which is the name tag. So, this character also doesn't ever get to really do the challenge. We're just trying to climb the wall and then eventually flop. However, we did hear an interesting character trait, the whole name thing. So I don't think they'd be getting out, despite the fact that they are up for Elam. So I think this fella should be safe. We got to hear something about him. It's not going to be the worst. Pixel, another character I'm not too fond of immediately. Why? Because Polygon. To be honest, that's the reason. Polygon is a returnee. So having Pixel here immediately doesn't strike me as the greatest choice because you've got two characters whose gimmick is relatively similar. Polygon shapeshifts and gets up. Pixel is going to do something very similar as well, with a few differences like TPing and stuff and not talking. But in general, not I think the best character choice, but that's fine. Skittles, just sort of annoying, talks too much. Sure, why not? Don't mind it. And then Stick Figure, yeah. That's a 6 out of 10. That's an okay character. There's not much I got going for it, but you'll get some parallels with, stick figure animations and all of that jazz with the Minecraft. I wonder if that has anything to do with animation versus Minecraft in the way that they try to dig the wall like in Minecraft, because that would be a pretty cool reference if we're trying to replicate Alan Becker's style here with Mr. Stick Figure, which I wouldn't mind. I mean, I think that'd be pretty fun, to be honest. Well, I had the audio on. So, yeah, it's relatively chill. The intro, significantly cool. I like the intro. It's quite improved. Every character has a relatively good set of emotions. I really like how Paint Bucket just leaves, and all of that jazz. Then the newbies, their poses, they're all great. Like Hopper and stuff, eating, just being police officer, detonator, all of that jazz. I'm a big fan. Name tag as well, switching it to Paul. Yeah, that's true. I'm a big fan of all of them. So, Sticker's the name. So yeah, and then in the challenge, what did the returnees do? Because we didn't discuss the returnees. Brazil flag tries to dig to China, which is that a thing? Isn't there something saying that like the geographical opposite? No, that's Australia. Australia's right on the geographical opposite of Brazil. But other than that, it's like whatever. FNF Arrow for some reason wants to win for Treasure Tree. This I don't think this, like, I understand that of course it's the whole dynamic, but like I don't know if I'm a gigantic fan of this because Treasure Tree won, bro. Like, why are you winning? Yeah, okay, sure, you're winning 4 of them, but like, I like with someone that already won, so it's kind of weird. Polygon also is sort of just in reminiscing mode by going with ham and eventually winning immunity by using ham, eating ham, and all that jazz. Lego Flame, pretty smart strategy in the challenge by grabbing one of his fellow Lego buddies and smashing the wall. So that was pretty nice. Fellow runner, Homestar runner, also qualified by just, I guess, going around the wall. I guess, because eventually it goes back. We get recommended characters, which is also a thing. That's pretty cool. I don't know where they came from, probably from Discord, but that is pretty fire. And then Paint Bucket doesn't really do much of anything. This Paint Bucket gets passed because Copper gets passed for her. So by just sort of believing, you end up doing it. But overall, there was a lot of creativity put into the challenge. I like the characters that get through, the ways they get through, and all that stuff. I also do like the voting images. It's Copper looking outwards from the box. The Brazil flag as well, doing the same thing. Gary writing on the box and all that. The fact that mostly everybody leaves the box is pretty swag. Who's getting elimed? I I mean, I really hope it's the snail, dude. I really hope it's the snail. It's the one character I can't see much writing on them right now. Like they can write the snail to be anything, but it's just not that interesting because I already have the SpongeBob characters, or just have another SpongeBob inspired. So I hope it's that. Unless there's a character that was directly dislikable, like maybe people didn't like Copper Detonator, and then they get out. But I'm hoping right here that Gary the Snail gets eliminated. But overall, this episode, it's a writing mainly. I think it's a writing improvement in this challenge than the other one. Keeping the gags, but also having a proper challenge where the characters get to be more creative rather than in ANOSIMBIB where everybody just sort of does things in 2 minutes. And even though it was well paced, you could somewhat feel in weaker challenges that there wasn't much to do, like the cup stacking video in ANOSIMBIB. It was like sort of half the people didn't speak; they were just stacking cups. There's not much to say about it. So, yeah. All right, that's ANOSIMBIB 1. That's my look at it. All right, now we're going to be heading into ASTOSIMBIB 2, also released 1 year ago, over 1 year ago. ASTOSIMBIB 2 is called Tag. You're it. I'm guessing that they're going to be playing Tag in it. This video doesn't, it definitely drops off in terms of view count, but that makes sense. Usually, ANOSIMBIB, it's the compilation that got like a lot of views. So the actual individual episodes, they don't do as well. But either way, we're going to be heading into it. Let's hear it. Alright, I have just finished watching ASTOSIMBIB 2, and that was a lovely episode. I like that episode so much. I am smiling. That was a good episode. So, let's first of all, before anything, I would just like to mention something which I didn't mention for any of the previous episodes so far, even though I have noticed it from time to time. Is that lovely backgrounds? Like even though the backgrounds are ultra simple, they're like filled with tiny references from time to time, like when the split screen, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, one of them had 4, the other one had X, for example, and there were tons of other things like that in the background that gets played. Just these tiny little drawings and things that they're just cool. They're just fun and like lovely, lovely little details that you go like, ah, that's cute. It shows like an extra degree of effort. But now the next challenge, it's not tag. I mean, it's a tag team race. It's like a what they call it, a relay race, basically. The two teams get divided into their respective sections. And the first one is just a quick 100-meter race with an obstacle between Sticker and FNF Arrow. Turns out that they both pretty much get absolutely demolished by their own little trap there, but they eventually get through it. Then next up is a wall climb race between Paul and Side Bob or whatever. Now, other than the beginning, right, because of the character can't speak, but in general, I like it because there's this very like one-on-one setup where it feels natural, right, that the characters will have conversation because they are just standing there before the challenge, and even during the challenge, they're usually side by side. So I enjoy the way that this is set up. Um, because like it does allow for interesting and pretty cool combos between combos of characters we haven't seen. Paul gets this, that Polygon, which just kind of is a I don't care at all type of character. And then it is Homestar Runner. What was the section between Homestar Runner and Polygon? I don't know what they were supposed to do. Um, but either way, Kyoto's eventually answers the phone with completely random sets of things. To be honest, like not any of it is super important except one of them that goes like, "I'm in your house." But anyway, she answers the phone. She's just that type of character that talks to him. That's a character type. I enjoy those characters as well. I enjoy characters that don't talk a lot, but I also enjoy characters that talk a lot. Because it's just kind of, yeah, you can do a lot of gags with the Skittles and M&M or whatever they're called. Skittles M&M? What did I just say? There's no way that's the character name. What are they called? I, I don't even know, but whatever they're called, it's pretty cool. Hold on, let me find out. What are you called? Oh yeah, you're called Skittles, man. You're called Skimming them, but like, all right. Which just keeps answering the phone. And eventually, it's the underwater person between Cavity and Pain Bucket. They get along as sort of shy. Well, okay, period. Pain Bucket isn't shy, but just sort of doesn't would prefer people that also don't talk a lot, and Cavity is that. So eventually, it will help out. There's a little bit of a bond going on in there, you know. To be honest, even though Pain Bucket is like there was a bond connection with Cavity. Realistically, at least as far as I know from the character type, I can't lie. I mean, Pain Bucket is a big fan of dying. You know, Pain Bucket, big fan of dying. So, like, having the saving somebody who's about to die. I don't think it was necessarily. It's not usually within her cards, but like sure, we'll go with it, because they had the bond. Pixel and Brazil Flag are up next. Brazil Flag at this point is just getting tortured every episode. If we include like the final few episodes of ANOSIMBIB, Brazil Flag is not having a great time as of current, but it is how it is. Maybe it's despite the viewers, Maybe it's despite the fan favorite. Pixel gets by. Pixel's not that interesting. Let's hope that they eventually get something to do with it. Then Haystack between a Copper and Lego Flame. This section is relatively okay, but and they're both speaking. Copper sort of just makes chat with everybody. It's pretty evil chat, any chat that Copper makes is just like, I'm gonna get you. But other than that, it's like, is a very chatty character in a sort of weird way. I also like Copper. I like these newbies. I'll be honest. I'm a fan of these newbies. To be like, yeah, they didn't do much with Sticko and Pixel, and they're the ones that I think need the most type of like creative writing to help them get where they are, but to help them get to like a good state. But in general, we'll see. Eventually, Copper tases the haystack, which is a nice, Copper way to do it. So I don't know. I think there's a good amount of creativity to this writing. Eventually, Skim and M gets up there before Detonator, but unfortunately, the phone calls and she goes back to it. This was mildly predictable that it would happen because, like, why would there be the setup if not otherwise? But eventually, Detonator manages to be safe and are acting a bit more chill than usual. And who's up for Elim then at the end of it? Polygon is just mad. So, who to eliminate? There's Cavity, Lego Flame, Paw, Pixel, Sticker, Skim and M, and Polygon. Because I'm not a big fan of Polygon, but I like my prediction who would get eliminated here. I think it's got to be Pixel. I think it's got to be Pixel because like the only time we've ever seen Pixel be interesting is the intro, right, where Pixel sort of shapeshifts and stuff. But in this challenge so far, Pixel has been hilariously uninteresting. In challenge number 1, Pixel has just TP'd over the wall and been immediately safe, so he didn't get cement. In this challenge, Pixel has gone boop boop boop. Like it's not that funny, it's just what Pixel would do, I guess, right? So it's like, I think in a vote to eliminate setting, Pixel should be eliminated out of this group of people nearly for sure. However, it is also very possible that Skimmin'em gets eliminated despite the fact that they get nearly the most screen time in the episode. They did cost the team the challenge. So if you are judging on bad performance, Skimmin'em gets out. If you're judging on simply character dislikability, I would say Pixel gets out. I'll be interested to see, because here's the thing about ANOSIMBIB is that usually the teams the vote to eliminate, they're all people who failed. So, like, in general, there isn't that much voting based on performance going on because of that. However, in this case, we do actually have people that did fine. A lot of people did all right in this challenge and eventually just lost because we have a team. We pretty much never had proper teams in ANOSIMBIB. So this is like the first case that we get to see a team, and we get to see this case. So we're just gonna have to discover what the now 15,000 or more voters. Really nice to see how the show has grown, especially I'm guessing after the compilation, but yeah, it did very well. Me personally, I'd vote out Pixel, but it's possible that Skimming gets out. I guess we'll find out heading into the next one. Alright, and heading into the next one, we will. ASTOSIMBIB 3 is called No Moody, Eat the Foodie. From the name, well, it looks like an eating challenge. Eat the most possible or eat whatever is bad, eat bad food. I mean, I don't know, but I'm fine now. I'm pretty excited. This has been a fun watch so far. Let's head into ASTOSIMBIB 3. Hello, welcome back. I've just watched ASTOSIMBIB 3. No Moody, Eat the Foodie. Now let's start with the cake and steak ceremony in this episode. So it was very interesting because it was not close at all. Back just a few minutes ago, I was discussing how it was gonna be a battle, Pixel versus Skim about who's gonna survive. But no, it turns out the voters are very, very performance reliant. I mean, yes, kid. Turns out that makes perfect sense. I was weirded out just because it never happened before, so I wasn't like too sure if it necessarily was going to happen again. But yeah, it does in fact happen that the person who does bad on the team. Especially because Skim and M did it at the worst time. It's not like you do something bad and you have time to recover throughout the rest of the episode. No, that was the last scene before the challenge ends. So yeah, it turns out that is a way to pretty much eliminate somebody at will when you write them that way. So now we figured that out. But no more teams in this episode because the challenge is just get food. Get food to Mr. Pie, which was sick at the start, but then eventually gets healed. Now, how do the characters go about doing this? So, let's start with Polygon. Polygon orders DoorDash. It takes a long time. Then, hold on, who gets safe in what order? Sticky gets a marshmallow away from Paul and is gonna be safe. Then we have the whole scene with Cavity. Okay, so yeah. So Cavity and Pain Bucket are a thing. Or at least Cavity is a thing. with Pain Bucket. Lego Flame, out of all characters, is the one to give the pep talk. For some... okay, no. So Cavity's planting a carrot. That's the idea. The planting food. That makes sense. And eventually, Lego Flame gives, I think, a Lego meal? One of those. To... What is a Lego meal? That I do not know those. Now I think about it, I don't know what a Lego meal is, but anyway, gives one of those to Pie and is safe. Between the whole Pain Bucket and Cavity dynamic, I mean, we'll have to see, because Pain Bucket doesn't care, hasn't historically cared about a damn thing in history. So I mean, we'd have to see like the shared trust here, because Cavity, sure, you're into it, but like, we need to see if there's going to be the conversation from the other side. We'll have to see. I'm pretty interested though. It looks like an interesting dynamic. Then the whole donut scenario. Okay, so Copper leaves the donuts to go pat down Sponge, side Bob. Then was gonna bring the donuts over, but decided to go to the DoorDash instead. So decides to go win brownie points by giving the donuts to Pain Bucket, which eventually just wins because they're right there. So Pain Bucket wasn't really gonna do anything. Interesting enough, I wonder if the paint would have just kind. What the paint just counts as food? I mean, it wouldn't be good, but bro ate Lego and it worked. So like. Maybe I'm just saying, all right. In like BFDI, dirt counts as a cake. So anything is possible in object shows if you believe. Eventually, the sponge escapes getting arrested by becoming a cake. However, Copper takes that as a win because they eat the cake. Eventually, Brazil Flag makes barbecue, which makes sense. That's what Brazil Flag would do. However, eventually gets exploded by a detonator because Brazil Flag cannot experience joy in writing anymore. When is the last time Brazil Flag has not been demolished? I don't know. I don't like. Okay, I get it. This the fan favorite. Chill. You don't need to see this much murder. Give him, throw him a bone. Throw this bro a bone. Anyway, one of the stakes ends up with F and F arrow, which accidentally runs into Pi and is safe. Delivery comes in for Polygon, but eventually Paul steals it. The stake ends up landing on him, so um, the name tag Paul fella is safe, while Polygon is up for elimination alongside Pixel, which doesn't really do anything. Pixel was just in the mouth of. Wait, where's Pixel? I don't know where Pixel is, but Pixel's just in the mouth of Sponge of Pie to eat the Ben 10 thing, which I guess Sidebulb won't have anymore because of it. So I guess it was a good one time usage challenge. I mean, hey, it's nice. Okay, here's the deal. The watch, the Ben 10 watch is nice because it's like a challenge prize that's actually useful. Because a lot of the time, prizes in object shows, they're cake or whatever. They're like very clearly a joke, just made to be a gag, and then there's not much else going for it. But the fact that the watch was genuinely useful to somebody for the challenge is very nice. I like it when a prize actually has value in a following challenge, even if it's biased because only one person gets that watch. But oh well, it is the way it is. In terms of the elimination, there is, I mean, dude, you gotta eliminate Pixel. I don't know why Pixel would stay. I'm currently entirely anti-Pixel. I'm gonna be honest, because Pixel, they wasn't even written into the challenge. This fella is like, sure, they could be interesting. We saw like the last scene something interesting, but they just don't write Pixel into the episodes. Every other character is written pretty good in terms of screen time and whatever, and having something going on. I like Detonator. I like Brazil. Homestar is just kind of goofy, dumb, and like the other like, Polygon is mean, but whatever. Cybob is one of the former fan favorites. Cavity's got the whole thing going on. It's like there's stuff happening. It's just Pixel for some reason is not included in that writing meeting, or just that writing. I don't know. It's kind of weird. So I think eliminate Pixel, please. The only other character that I could see getting eliminated, well, there's two of them. Homestar Runner could get eliminated because of the whole bias against non-objects. However, with this many people, I don't think that would happen, but it's possible. And then also Polygon for being mean, quote unquote. However, they did get cheated out of the win, so I don't think they're getting eliminated. I'm gonna go with Pixel just because I want Pixel out. I want Pixel out. Pixel had the opportunity. It's not a concept that necessarily doesn't work, but Polygon is just that, but better and actually written. We don't need two of them. Pixel, you gotta go. All right, that was my talking about ASTOSIMBIB 3, and now it's time to head into ASTOSIMBIB 4, one of the longest episodes, right next to the new one. It's 8 months old. It is called Flood Rush. No idea what's going to be happening. I'm guessing that they're going to need to climb up high into the sky to, of course, evade the flood. It's time to head into the long video. The only one of the very few ASTOSIMBIB videos that is technically allowed for monetization, for being longer than 8 minutes. ASTOSIMBIB 4 Flood Rush. Here we go. I am excited for these. I can't even lie. We're getting to the modern era. I mean, I've spent like all of today just watching ANOSIMBIB and ASTOSIMBIB. Here we go. Alright, I have just finished watching ASTOSIMBIB 4 Flood Rush, and you see these episodes, they're getting better, they're getting more interesting. They're longer, but with reason, the challenges themselves, I think, it feels better written. Because, like, even, I think the weaker challenges so far is definitely, I think, the last episode, episode 3. But even then, it was like a challenge to the level of ANOSIMBIB 1. which I liked. I think it was good. So overall, it's going pretty nicely. So let's start off with the cake and steak, where Homestar Runner got eliminated with 3,100 votes. Pixel gets away with it, unfortunately for me. But yeah, Pixel does manage this one rather well. They're relatively safe. Homestar Runner gets eliminated. I think, I think Homestar Runner's elimination is pretty interesting because I think there's a general want for characters. Maybe, okay, this is my theory, right, on Homestar Runner's elimination here. I think there's a want of the viewers for the challenge to get followed, right? In a way, like, that's what we're here to do. We're watching a competition. We want to see the competition get played. So I think when it's something like Homestar Runner, where like bro literally had food on hand, the bro is just eating it and not doing anything with it, it feels in a way sort of like a disrespect to the competition, right? Because it's like, okay, we understand you're a character that's acting dumb and it's kind of dumb, right? But like in general, we still want a dumb character that tries to compete. But Homestar Runner is a dumb character that doesn't want to compete. I mean, dumb as in like just doesn't know stuff a lot, right? So it's like, in general, I understand that elimination for sure, with that theory in mind. Then what happens? For some, okay, so Copper decides the detonator must not detonate any longer because just, I don't know, got taped up. It was causing destruction, caused a mass flood by blowing up the water valve. TNT detonator is distraught by this development. First of all, tape isn't like literally forced on it. Like, it's not like when tape is there, it'll never leave ever. Like, you could get rid of the tape. Like, there was just there. I don't, it's just this caution tape. Like, you can get rid of it eventually. Just find a method to do that. But I guess you didn't. So they never even ended up trying the challenge by just being sad. But it's a pretty good development idea. Pixel ends up teaming with Polygon, and okay, so Pixel actually does stuff in this episode. Has a pretty cool brawl with FNF era, which splits in 4, and Pixel does something. Does the type of thing which Pixel should be doing. Transforming. That's what we know Pixel can do. But for 3 episodes, Pixel didn't do none of that, right? And that's why I was annoyed, because it wasn't written. Like, Pixel just was never written. But this time, with the help of Polygon, but Pixel was finally written in and did a good challenge. So now, presumably, they would be friends, I guess. Pixel, I think still ends up for Elam, but we'll see, because now there's actually interesting stuff going on with Pixel. So, Sticko gets safe immediately. I think this is just a ploy to how sort of cool of a concept it is. Like, okay, so this is definitely animation versus Minecraft animation versus Alan Becker inspired stick fig, because like, there's a whole mouse stuff going on, Minecraft, the punching and all of that jazz going on. So it's like, this is definitely the inspiration for Sticker the character, and I think even just in the writing of these episodes, I think you can realize that like, it's so many ways to go about it when you have the power of a computer, the power of Minecraft. So Sticker just ends up being completely goated, right? Like, nobody's gonna hate Sticker, so vote to eliminate. And there's just so many ways for bro to just sneak by challenges, this way, just copy and paste the water. Like, it's a very creative idea, and it's very nice. It's super good to do. So yeah, absolutely. I'm a big, big, big fan of that. I am also a big fan of Detonator's voice acting, by the way. Detonator is like going so emotional in the way bro speaks. It's very, very, very nice. Like, Copper, but different. There's a lot of vocal variants. Brazil Flag finally doesn't just die immediately. In fact, Brazil Flag doesn't speak in this episode, if I'm not mistaken. Like, Brazil Flag was the character that wasn't written this time, but if you're not gonna write a character, at least let them be safe. um, So that's fair. Then Sponge tries to figure out how to not go in the water because there's a sponge and the sponge is gonna suck up the water. And for some reason, Sponge side is the strongest sponge of all time, so water is banned. Um, so while they're trying to figure out, they throw the vase down what is it? The container down there and can't grab it up because of physics. I think it could have worked if it was maybe thrown upside down. Maybe it could have held on to at least a percentage of water, but threw it right side up, so physics did its thing. Then Paul got completely scammed, was filling it up with spit, which is an interesting way to go about it, and eventually just gets their 70% tank stolen by Lego Flame, which pours it into their own tanks. Pretty smart. Lego Flame has turned out to be a very smart character. Lego Flame, like the way they're writing Lego Flame right now it's sort of it's a very smart little character. Writing under the radar type character, but just kind of finds the sneaky strat that gets through. I'm liking Lego Flame, it's sort of like a competitor. Like this was a real show. Like if there was like a real reality show and this type of character, I would like them, because they're that type of character that plays smart, So I'm liking Lego Flame as well in this challenge. But yeah, Paul just gets absolutely scammed. Paul is just in general having a bad time all the time. In like nearly every episode because they just like they're either getting misnamed and are upset about it, or it's just something else is going on with them and it's the whole mess going on. Eventually Sponge does fall into the water because of F and F Arrow trying to get revenge, and yep, it turns out the Sponge side bob is in fact capable of sucking up all of the water on all of the flood, and then also wins automatically on accident because of the fact that the container was also in the water. Then the water gets turned onto another side with these little aliens. Which, by the way, this makes so goofy. I love the aliens. These designs of these alien fellas, they're amazing. I love them. I want to see more of them. I don't think we'll ever see more of them, but if we ever do, I hope we see more of them because they look adorable. They're like the greatest designs of all time. Um, and yeah, and then we're up for Elam. However, we haven't talked about Cavity and Paint Bucket, which is, of course, it feels like the main thing that is happening. For some reason, Lego Flame is just like the wingman for Cavity for some reason. So, the only part that I found kind of goofy is that Paint Bucket is like, I need the floaties, otherwise I won't resist drowning, which that's not true. Like that's just not true. That is inaccurate. Like you swam like 2 episodes ago. Like all good. You swam. It was did everything. Like personally, how I would have written it is like, okay, one thing that I don't like how the way that Paint Bucket has dealt with water, because it's a paint bucket. If you go underwater, the paint's gonna scatter. There's gonna be something's gonna happen with the paint, right? I didn't like that in episode 2 because, like, come on, you can write something interesting where like it coats the water with the paint and it's all gets scooped up and stuff, and maybe paint bucket doesn't survive or something. It's like it's something interesting happens with that scenario. You just gotta do it. Like, however, they didn't write that, and I mean that's mildly disappointing because I think it's a very cool concept. You can write a cool little segment with that. But either way, yeah, Cavity is into Paint Bucket, but at the same time is also worried for them because of course Paint Bucket is just entirely evil. At the end, they go like, "Hey, I'm here for you. If you ever want to talk about it." We can talk about it. And the Paint Bucket, it doesn't say anything because that's the Paint Bucket way, but does give a mild little smile. A mild little smile. So that's progress. They're making progress here, Cavity and Paint Bucket. They're making progress, and that's one of the main things going on in the season because there's a plushie of Paint Bucket. That's, I think, the first plushie that they made. was the Paint Bucket plushie featuring the little bow. So that's pretty swag. I can't lie, it's pretty swag. It was at the beginning of the episode saying that it was up for pre-order. I don't know if it's up for pre-order right now. I know the pie plush is going to be getting made. It was announced alongside episode 5, but the Paint Bucket plush was for episode 4. So that's all pretty cool. But overall, this episode very, 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 very nice watch. I can't even lie. Do I think it's the best episode yet? Ooh, that's a good question. It's up there with episode 2 for sure. Of ASTOSIMBIB for sure. They're both, I think, pretty good episodes. And I'm interested to see more. As far as the elimination, this one is extremely interesting, because they've written because like the other time in the last thing, they should have just eliminated Pixel. They didn't, but because Pixel was so nothing that nobody even noticed they were in elimination. That's my way of thinking it. So Cavity and Paint Bucket are up for Elam. There's no way they get Elam. I'm sorry. Like, I think that they're there entirely just to make other people get saved. Because if this audience eliminates Cavity or Paint Bucket, I am gonna go crazy. In a way, that is the craziest amount of trolling. Because they're trying to do a slow burn writing going on here. So that if the audience just goes like, no, that would be hilarious. But let's hope they didn't do that. Detonator was the one that was getting eliminated last time, and Pixel also, but I don't think either of them are gonna get out. Maybe they could, because they both did do, I don't know. Detonator didn't do much in the challenge, but you can kind of see maybe there's gonna be sympathy and not voting for them. But then it's like, who else do you vote for? Because people like FNF Era. People are fans of FNF Era. It's kind of a fan favorite. Had the battle with Pixel. Pixel wasn't a fan favorite, and Pixel did get FNF Era, but they both had a cool scene. So maybe you're not going to eliminate either. Or Paul just kind of had a bad time. I think that also got sympathy vote. Copper. I'm gonna go with Copper. I don't know. By process of elimination, I think Copper gets out because Copper did a mean thing by disabling Detonator, and we sort of get it. That's gonna be my way of going for it. I am going to vote Copper. And as a final note on the episode, why did nobody just go down there with the container? Like FNF Arrow was just chilling with the container on a boat. And it's like, no, just dunk it in the water. Dunk it in the water. Grab the water, go up. And it's like Cavity, for example, going with the whole, like, coming in, grabbing a droplet and putting it on, like, bring the bucket over down there. Even Paint Bucket, the floaty is going, oh, nah. Like, I don't know why nobody did that concept. Like, huh? It's not that complicated of a concept. Whatever. That's what I have to say about, as I said before, was a fun watch. Let's head into the modern episode. And finally, we have reached ANOSIMBIB 5, the final episode of this marathon quest that we have had towards watching all of ANOSIMBIB and all of ASTOSIMBIB so far. The episode that released yesterday after an 8-month gap between them. So there's probably a lot writing on this episode, to be honest. It's called ZA. So we're gonna have to see here if what's going on. It's longer than the other one. It's not the longest episode ever because of 8B, but it is the longest episode of this season so far. And it's pretty important. Let's see what we got here with ANOSIMBIB 5. Then we'll talk about it. We'll discuss it all in depth right after watching it. Be right back. Alright, I have just finished watching the latest episode of ANOSIMBIB 5 ZA. Now, it's gotta be weird to have spent this long without an episode, because it's been, like, again, it's so long since ANOSIMBIB 4. But, yeah. For me, it's been like 5 minutes. So it all feels normal, but like with this much of a gap, I mean, it's gotta be pretty crazy. So, first of all, pie plushie. As previously stated, there is a pie plushie. There is a literal pie toy. Now, okay, look, here's the deal. So pie toy is an animation made for one of those things. I don't think it was very enjoyed by people. Again, I don't know. You see, this is what happens when you are on Twitter, because you just hear random ramblings about things that you don't have context on. So I don't know. I think it was an animation that people hated on for no reason. But yes, it is there. I mean, presumably the Pain Bucket plushie I think got made. So yeah, I think this will probably get made. I mean, it got 80. I mean, so far it's been 17 hours, by the way, since the episode released as of the time. It's got 80,000 views. So I think we're in a pretty good spot as far as this show's concerned. You know, it's been pretty popular. It's been pretty well. We start here with Brazil flag, and also SpongeBob Side Pants is a Brazilian Portuguese speaker as well, which is quite nice. You get to see another character speak Portuguese, which is quite nice. Quality of the Portuguese, I mean, it's the same, you know. the it's like good enough that you can understand it. It's not like perfection, but yeah, it's pretty solid. Meanwhile, we head into Cake It's Steak. Polygon is drunk, and you can tell because they're just blushing all the time, which is an interesting method to show that you're drunk. I feel like that's not how you would usually do it, but in this case it is. You know, usually you show like bubbles or whatever going on. So we head to the Cake Steak, where Cavity and Paint Bucket are together just by a margin the least voted, because yeah, nah, people are not gonna ever vote these two out in the way that they're being written, because they're, of course, they're the characters that have to stay on the show for things to happen. Uh, yeah, Pi shows Cavity the horrors of the internet. I don't know what was seen. Y'all, what did y'all do with Cavity? I don't, But either way, the eliminated ends up being Detonator. Unfortunately, I think there was a writing attempt for an ASTOSIMBIB 4 to try to, give Detonator something that isn't just boom, because, like, it's sort of something different. But it did end up working by 300 votes. Copper remains safe comparatively to Detonator. Again, I'm going to go and say that it's the same type of vibe as before, It's sort of Detonator not really doing the challenge. And when you don't do the challenge, voters don't like it. Voters want you to play by the rules in a way, They want you to do the challenge at the very minimum. And Detonator didn't do it last time, which means that, yeah. So, pie slice, best pizza of all time gets made, then eventually they all have to go up a gigantic pillar to grab it. Now, the first thing that happens is the freaking Lego Lego Flame gets like completely dismembered by Paul. Fair enough. For once, Paul doesn't, get absolutely demolished by everybody around him, and somebody else gets demolished. Pixel and Polygon have this interesting dynamic. Okay, so yeah, there is a very interesting dynamic going on with Pixel, because we don't know what Pixel's deal is. Because it would have been very interesting if Pixel didn't like Polygon in a way, but Pixel is buddies with Polygon. Went to the bar at least. I mean, I'm presuming Pixel was there. Otherwise, why would you? Was part of the fight and all of that jazz, and even spoke in a way when they shaped it into Pi in ASTOSIMBIB 4. And here, tries to help out Polygon as much as you reasonably can by bringing them up and then grabbing the pizza. I'm glad that Pixel is safe, because this is a very Pixel challenge. Like, obviously, Pixel should be safe in the challenge. You were the flying contestant, you can get there in 1 second. So I'm glad that at least that's just a thing. There's no dumb stuff going on. It is a challenge, yes. Then Cavity turns out to be safe, because Paint Bucket just doesn't like the pizza, so just immediately gets sent for elimination, because Pi don't want here none of it, which is fair enough. Then Sticker. So the Sticker isn't safe in this episode, but it's entirely just a writing, it's forced to happen, because Sticker should absolutely be safe, like a 900 days out of 10. Because yet again, as I said, I think in the last episode, Sticker's just so good to write. Like, Even then, in this case, we're not even doing an Alan Becker thing. In this case, we're doing Henry Stickmin. We're doing the distraction dance. But yeah, when you have this type of Stickmin vibe character, you can just do so much reference material to work on, to have creative ways to win battles, to do stuff, to distract your opponents, to win challenges. And Sicko yet again just strikes and would have just honestly won the challenge like first or second. It was sort of forced not to, but like should have realistically, because like the only reason Sicko didn't win was because Paul randomly appeared and took the slice instead. SpongeBob Sidebob also, it proceeds to be safe after climbing up. Then, so it turns out, okay, the Pi has this interesting ability, which we have seen from time to time, is this sort of mind snap. That here in this, well, you're not going to be seeing it, but here in the scene between Copper and FNF Arrow, you see at its best. You see it like properly play itself out, because Copper sort of has the pep talk that just world shaking view. It's like, oh shit, I am in a competition show and anything I do is just be like a police officer. But then Pi, does this snap thing that they can do as a fellow, algebraian. That's a BFDI thing. This is presuming an alternate universe that we're in, but Pi is very clearly inspired off an algebraian, has pretty much the same powers that an algebraian would have. So I'm going to call him an algebraian for now, okay? Yeah, can snap Copper back together and eventually just manages to get up. Does Copper get the slice piece? No, Copper gets distracted by fella Henry Stickmin. They have a battle. And then Cavity tries to get Paint Bucket safe. Doesn't really work. And Polygon ends up safe, bro. At the end of it. Somehow, for some reason, even the thing that Polygon swears or whatever, I don't know what Polygon says, but like it's something that even Paint Bucket is surprised to have heard, which is not something that you think very often, considering, Paint Bucket has said some negative stuff about, dying and drowning and being dead and stuff. So you wouldn't think that there would be much sensibility in that aspect, but nah, Paint Bucket did not like what was said there at all. So at the end of it, yeah, Henry Stickmin, I think, yeah, takes out Copper, because I'm saying Henry Stickmin. Okay, Sticko ends up taking down the Copper fella. Brazil Flag ends up being the weaker one than SpongeBob Side Bob, Sponge Side Bob fella. Wait, SpongeBob Side Pants, yeah, not Side Bob, Side Pants, yes. So eventually is just in a situation. Brazil Flag is that type of character. So there's an interesting thing going on with these eliminations. A lot of characters actually go up for elim, but in general, Brazil Flag getting out is very rare, because people like Brazil Flag just as a concept. Like it doesn't matter that much what Brazil Flag does. Maybe, of course, if you get, like, for example, if Brazil Flag did the same thing that Skiminem did in ASTOSIMBIB 2, maybe they would be eliminated, right? But as far as just conceptually speaking, in these types of solo challenges where 6 people fail, so in terms of like challenge performance, you can't judge them too harshly because they all kind of did the same thing. Brazil Flag's pretty much never getting out because just the concept of a Brazil Flag is cool. And you can see that there's stuff going on. Now, who else is there? Sticko has been, as far as the elimination where Sticko has been around, Sticko sort of skated under the radar, hasn't had many votes to eliminate. Sticko has been a very good performer, and in my eyes, is one of the best characters because you can just write him so well. There's so many things you can do that are creative, they just work, and every time it's going to be something different that works and is cool, right? So I would absolutely keep Sticko around. FNF Era is another one of those fan favorite characters, is sort of that late from season 1. It's the only character that hasn't had like a memory reset that much, from like still actively thinks of ANOSIMBIB consistently. You know, like even Lego Flame, which got further than FNF Arrow did the other time, doesn't really think about it as much as FNF Arrow thinks of ANOSIMBIB. So, like, but I mean, Lego Flame still does, because as we saw there, Lego Flame had a grudge. And Lego Flame, I don't think has ever survived an elimination, except that were they on up at the chocolate block for ASTOSIMBIB 1? I don't know, maybe? But I don't remember. That was a while ago this way. But anyway, yeah, so they're super sad about it, and eventually Cavity needs to go. Okay, Cavity's having the situation where it's like where Cavity's pretty much just bobbling between conversing with the same two people. There's like a circle. Like Cavity, you know that circle that's like it's a bloop, you know? It's like step 1, talk to Paint Bucket. Step 2, no, step 1, be shy. Step 2, talk to Lego Flynn. Step 3, go to Paint Bucket. Step 4, talk to Step 4, look at Lego Flame. That didn't work. Basically, like, it's just sort of just doing a back and forth. I talked to you. I talked to you. I talked to you. Like, don't really talk to that many other people. But anyway, it works because there are pretty cool dynamics that are going on. And I'll be interested to see if we ever get to see the remains of that conversation in ASOSIMBIB 6, what Cavity would say to Lego Flame, because we've only ever seen, the other thing. We've seen Lego Flame try to comfort Cavity, but we haven't seen Cavity try to comfort Lego Flame. So that would be an interesting thing. I hope, if we get asked that we get to see that conversation, because it is an interesting, unique conversation that we haven't seen, and it would help build some rapport, especially if Lego Flame ends up getting eliminated. But speaking of which, who is getting eliminated? Would it be Lego Flame? Maybe. The thing about Lego Flame is that we've seen a lot of Lego Flame, and we've done the sort of end game sob that might just keep him around, because you're trying to build sympathy at the last second, because people infamously don't like characters who don't have assets, right? For just kind of the vibe of it, right? Hope Star Runner didn't do well. Lego Flame was the first boot in ANOSIMBIB. So, yes, they have their world against them from the start. It could be Copper though. Copper is the other one that I'm imagining as like the prediction of who maybe would get eliminated, because it's sort of, like, has changed. Like, did have a thing happen, a very interesting thing with the whole FNF arrow, but then got reset back to being normal. So I don't know if that changes enough to keep Copper safe. Now, Copper did get an increased amount of votes than usual because of last challenge where they were mean, right? But in this case, Copper wasn't that mean. So I don't know. I still think Copper is in a it's probably in a bad. I'm probably gonna go with Copper, because everybody else in this elimination is very strong. Like, Brazil Flag's pretty much never getting out. Paint Bucket, no. Mystico, I'm doubting it. Currently seems to be a fan favorite as of the eliminations where they were around. I'm not really sure how we are in the modern era, but I guess there's a chance they could get out as like a non-speaking character if they don't like it. But I think they should stay in. If Pixels manages to stay in, come on, you gotta stay in. FNF Arrow stays in as sort of the fan favorite. And then Lego Flame and Copper are sort of battling out, but I think Lego Flame might have just won enough sympathy. However, remember, vote if you're listening to this. Voting is still open as of me recording this, as of this video being uploaded. So make sure, of course, don't fall for any of this rhetoric. Vote tactically. No, vote for who you want to eliminate. All right, Just because Brazil flag is always safe and always comes in doesn't mean that those 800 people that vote for this Brazil flag aren't relevant. Okay, no, they still matter. Everybody matter. Everybody votes matter. All right, whether they are for a popular character or not popular character, you never know what can happen in history. You just gotta vote. All right. Do I have any other comment? That's a pretty good episode, to be honest. I probably still prefer the other one, because it's not like that. Like, as far as challenge wise, it's not the greatest challenge in my personal view of it. Because again, it's sort of this challenge where you can kind of just do it, and a lot of random stuff happens near the end. Just sort of troll like, oh, you think they're gonna get it? Nope. Just kind of that trope happening like 4 times. So I don't think it's the best challenge in the world, but I think it's definitely up there. Definitely a good episode. The writing is fun. I like what they're doing with the Brazil flag and Sponge. I like what they're doing with FNF Arrow. I like there's character development going on. There's character arcs, which is something that we didn't see that much in ANOSIMBIB because the episodes were just so short. So in general, I think each episode slowly feels better than the last because we're seeing characters with more depth than before because of the last episodes. But of course, the last episodes are necessary to have the current episodes be as good as they are. But as far as the challenge, I'm still going to say that the Tat challenge was my favorite so far in the episodes because they pair the characters together directly. They get to interact. And even though it's cool to see the characters, do different things, seeing the characters interact like they did in ASTOSIMBIB 2, even if they're on opposing teams, they're directly interacting, either tagging each other to go in or out. Like there's a reason to talk to each other, in these, in like ASTOS, in challenges like this, or the first one, especially ASTOSIMBIB 1, it's like there's not that much of a reason to talk, with somebody else. Like, you still find a way to, but it comes off a little bit more awkward. So I hope to see more challenges like that, where it's either a team challenge or formed into teams, or duos. But the duos that isn't cup stacking. Cup stacking. There's not much interaction happening when you're stacking cups. So I hope that's what happens. But in general, this episode's good. I like it. It is getting better and better because of the characters gaining more and more complexity as they keep going. And yeah, I am pretty excited for the future. And there we have it. That was so far my discussion after watching every episode of ANOSIMBIB and every episode of ASTOSIMBIB so far. We have had our biggest episode of Object Catchup yet because we just had to watch so much to get to ASTOSIMBIB 5 as EA. However, I don't regret it one bit. There was time. It's a Sunday. I had nothing better to do personally, as you can very clearly tell. So I didn't mind taking this time to fully look over a show. A lot of the episodes, they were relatively shorter and stuff, and it's all cool. So yeah, hopefully next episode should be shorter. We will be taking a look at a variety of smaller shows tomorrow. It's the plan, unless somebody big draw. I can't ever promise what will happen in the next day because it obviously depends on what happens. But for the sake of looking at ASTOSIMBIB, I did skip out on a few things which we are going to be coming back to in the future. So because I am going to look at all of the shows eventually, of their new releases before getting there. I'm saying with the amount of new releases that happened throughout the weekend, I don't think we're gonna having another episode like the last one where we look at just BFDIA for a while, probably until BFDIA just releases an episode. So we will be definitely discussing that. Either way, that is all that I have for today. I have talked a lot. If you enjoyed, of course, make sure to keep an eye out. So far, episodes of Object Catchup are daily. However, much else will be happening in life throughout the day. So maybe some days we'll skip out on an episode. Maybe some days will be specials where we talk about something else. I'm not really sure. However, for now, that's all we have to say about ANOSIMBIB and ASTOSIMBIB. See y'all. Keep doing good work. Get a pie plush. Get a pie toy. I gotta say pie toy. Come on. It's too easy. You made a pie toy. Like what? And goodbye. We're all caught up.